New York campaign coordinator for Mercy for Animals, dedicated to protecting farmed animals through humane education and advertising programs, grassroots outreach, research, and undercover investigations. Perhaps a few of you saw our most recent investigation on hatcheries. I encourage you to get involved with us. Now, as part of our ongoing education programs, we are really privileged today to have a wonderful guest speaker. Dr. Michael Greger is an internationally recognized expert on human health issues, on nutrition and food safety. He is currently the Director of Public Health and Animal Agriculture at the Humane Society of the United States. We are very fortunate to have him here with us talking about vegan nutrition, so please give a very warm welcome to Dr. Michael Greger.
For those of you unfamiliar how this works, every year I go through the 5,000 articles published on human nutrition so you don't have to. Every year the talk is brand new because every year the science is brand new. I then compile all the most interesting, the most groundbreaking, the most practical results into a quiz show format. In a few moments I'm going to ask everyone to stand up. We'll play a few games. If you get the answer right, you get to remain standing. If you get the answer wrong, you need to sit down. And we'll keep going to see who the last person is standing. It's time for the USDA parasite game. Every year, the U.S. Department of Agriculture tests our retail meat and our animals, see just how infested our animals are with these parasites. And it's up to you to guess just how infested. Greater than 50% or less than 50%. First up, detection of Sarcocystosis parasites in retail beef. This is what it looks like actually in the meat. And then this is under a microscope cut cross-sectionally so you can see what you may be eating. So, okay, greater than 50%, less than 50%, what do you think?
Greater than.
We think a greater than.
Greater.
We got a greater?
Greater.
3 graters and 3, let's see. Parasites, they fed beef to dogs, and parasites were excreted by nearly every dog-fed beef samples originating in the United States, suggesting near universal infection. True prevalence, 95%. Definitely greater than 50%, still in the game, very nice. Next, lamb chops. Okay, the prevalence of the parasite toxoplasma isolated from lambs destined for human consumption in the United States of America. 383 lambs were obtained on the day of killing. For those of you who think, USDA doesn't have a heart, bullshit, they got 383. All right, what do you think? Greater than 50% or less than 50%? Let's start over here this time. We'll come back to you. It's okay. We got a greater? We got a greater. They're going greater. I don't know. Okay, we got 3 graders, and thankfully, 3 wrong answers. Only 1 in 6 lambs are infected. But the bad news is that 10% of the American population is infected with this brain parasite, which means that probably a few people in this room actually have a battle going on inside your skulls between this toxoplasma brain parasite and your immune systems. And it's been linked to bipolar, Parkinson's, and schizophrenia. But most people's immune systems can keep it at bay, but should your immune system start to slip and you're infected, it can travel from your brain into your eye, infect the back of your eyeball. This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like in the brain of an adult. You get these lesions. This is what this parasite does to the brains of our children. Pregnant women in particular should not be eating undercooked meat. But let me just address the safety of properly cooked meat. Last year, a novel method was found for the detection of fecal residue on poultry carcasses by using this fancy technique. In a processing plant, a metal hook is used to pull out the intestines. And so commonly, the skin on chickens is contaminated by ruptures of the digestive tract during the evisceration process that can expel what they call internal content. Internal content, which can end up on the carcass, but be picked up by this laser scanning. So, what percentage of U.S. chicken carcasses is contaminated with fecal matter? 92%. I mean, come on. So 92%. 9 carcasses out of 10 has this fecal matter. See, at least with pigs and cows, people don't eat the outside of them. But see, the problem with eating chickens and fish is by eating the skin itself, you're much more likely to get this kind of fecal contamination. Don't try this at home. Okay, that's why people need to cook the crap out of it. Literally. But 70 years ago, Swedish researchers found that if you fed roasted horse muscles to mice, they came down with cancer. We now know what this cancer-producing substance is. It's called the heterocyclic amine, according to the National Cancer Institute. These heterocyclic amines are carcinogenic chemicals formed from the cooking of mussels, such as muscles of fish or chickens, turkeys, pigs, cows, formed from the building blocks of the mussel itself when exposed to high temperatures. We're talking barbecuing, grilling, frying, that kind of thing. 17 different such heterocyclic amines have since been identified, and if you're a speed reader, you can see that those people eating medium well-done meat actually have significantly higher cancer rates than people eating medium rare meat because of these cooked meat carcinogens. But we're really not supposed to eat rare meat anymore because of the risk of food poisoning. So you're kind of like, cancer or E. coli. The traditional target of these cooked meat carcinogens has been breast cancer. But we now know that these cooked meat chemicals are neurotoxic as well. So researchers last year looked at meat consumption and something called essential tremor, which is one of the most common neurological conditions in the world. I saw someone in the subway this morning. They kind of go like this, starts in the hands, usually in people's 40s. But they can actually spread to the rest of the body, become quite debilitating, and we never knew what caused it. Until now, at least for men. Men were the only ones studied in the study. Men eating the most meat in this study had over 20 times the odds of coming down with this neurological condition for the rest of their lives. Now, just to illustrate how dramatic that is, a 20-fold increase in risk is, if you are a pack-a-day smoker for 20 years, your risk of getting lung cancer is only 13 times that of a lifelong non-smoker. So you smoke literally 100,000 cigarettes, 13 times more likely to get disease, but eat a lot of meat and 20 times more likely to get this neurological condition. In the United States, though, it's really the children that actually have the highest levels in their bodies, probably because they're just so small. And these cooked meat chemicals may play a role in our childhood asthma epidemic as well. Two things seem to do it: smoking in the home and this grilled meat intake. So public health authorities say no smoking in the home when there's children, and also reduce the intake of grilled meat by children so as to reduce their exposure to these carcinogens. Now, warnings about meat in general kind of vague. Where are these carcinogens found the most? Let's get everybody up to answer this. Are we talking a Whopper, a Big Mac, pan-fried chicken, lamb chop, pork chop, grilled salmon? Who thinks it's a flame-broiled burger? Raise your hand. Who thinks it's pan-fried burger? Who thinks it's the chicken breast? Who thinks it's the lamb chop, pork chop, grilled salmon? Grilled salmon, good guess. But beating out even grilled salmon, number 2, chicken, in terms of carcinogenic contamination. Amazing. Very nice. Look at this. All right. Now, chickens aren't the only things that are roasted, though. What about coffee beans?
Yeah.
But since the carcinogen is made from mussels, and there are no mussels in coffee, there was only very insignificant quantity. So one doesn't have to worry about coffee. And they deep fried a tempeh burger, a veggie burger, and found 0 mutagenicity, no carcinogens found, again, because it's not mussel meat, and the carcinogens actually come from the mussel itself. Okay, so it's the chicken that's really the number 1, but which chicken? This is going to be a toughie, but researchers went to California, went to McDonald's, Burger King, all these other restaurants, got their grilled chicken entree, salad, sandwich, whatever. 100 samples found carcinogens in every single one of them, these heterocyclic amines, but which one took the cancer cake? Was it Applebee's, Burger King, Chick-fil-A, Chili's, McDonald's, Outback Steakhouse, or TGI Fridays? I would not have known this, but let's give it a try. Anyone want to shout out? Burger King. We got Applebee's. Other Applebee's. We'll come back to you. What do you think over there?
Burger King.
Burger King.
Fridays.
TGI Fridays.
TGI Fridays.
Outback.
We have McDonald's.
Outback.
Outback. We got an Applebee's and another Applebee's, and we have a winner. Unbelievably, this is a toughie. That Cobb salad at TGI Fridays. Congratulations. Really off the charts for whatever reason. Now, to avoid the cancer or E. coli conundrum, one could ask a restaurant to instead boil or steam their meat, kind of lower temperature cooking methods, but they still have to handle it correctly. Many of you have seen, this is the summary of the study, just saying obviously simple steps, such as reducing or avoiding the consumption of grilled chicken products. That's the strategy to reduce your intake of carcinogenic or mutagenic toxins. You have seen these. So even if they boil or steam your meat, they'd still have to handle the meat correctly. Researchers at the University of Iowa sent trained observers into 16 restaurants in the Midwest to see how often and how well our food service personnel washed their hands as they prepared our food. How did they do? Let's get everybody up to find out. Now note, this is compliance with the Federal Food Code guidelines, which are actually really quite strict. Like, you're supposed to wash your hands technically between moving from one food to another. So from like meat to making a salad, you're supposed to wash your hands. I mean, it's hard to get 100%. At the same time, they had someone with a clipboard looking over their shoulder the whole day. So what do you think? Did they wash their hands 0 to 20% of the time? Who's pessimistic? Raise your hand. 0 to 20. Who thinks, okay, not that bad. 20 to 40. 40 to 60. 60 to 80. And anyone have 80 to 100? Anybody? No. All right, well, you're right. It's not 80 to 100. But it's not 60 to 80 or even 40 to 60. Ready for this? Oh. Thus, there was 0% compliance. 0% compliance with the recommendation for hand washing procedures. Yes?
Did the workers know what they were being watched for, or was just some random person with a clipboard?
Random person with a clipboard.
Okay.
Then you definitely don't have to wash your hands. Okay, what if we do it ourselves though, right? From the meat counter straight to our home in a biohazard suit, dropped straight into boiling water, no cross-contamination in the kitchen. In fact, what if it's even the most contaminated food? Chicken is second only to fish in terms of food poisoning risk. So what if it's even fish, but it's handled and cooked properly? Fact or fiction? You can't get food poisoning from properly handled and cooked fish. Now, I mean, you can get all sorts of food poisoning from raw fish, for example. 85% of sushi, of fish fillets, contaminated with fecal bacteria because of the gut waste exposed during evisceration in the slaughter process. You can get cholera from oysters. In fact, there's a new strain of cholera in North America as of last year. You can get tapeworms and other delights and parasites from sushi, including brainworms and eye worms. I will spare you the photo of the eye worm. And then these necrotizing infections, so people eating oyster, shellfish, other seafood, the so-called flesh-eating bacteria. Immediate limb amputations were performed on all patients. Still, 37% of them died. But what if you cook out the crab? Right? Now, this is only in terms of food poisoning, not the kind of long-term issues like PCBs and mercury and all that stuff, but acute food poisoning from properly cooked and handled fish. Who says you can't get food poisoning? Fact. Raise your hand. Who says fiction? Right? And it turns out some of the most common causes of fish-borne food poisoning not affected by cooking at all. 50,000 people a year get poisoned by a neurotoxin in tropical fish like red snapper, sea bass, grouper, who themselves eat fish that eat a little toxic algae. Can cause all sorts of weird reactions like a reversal of hot and cold sensations. Hot feels like cold, cold feels like hot. And the toxin itself can be sexually transmitted and cause weeks of painful genital symptoms. So even if you don't eat fish and your non-vegetarian lover assures you that they properly cooked and handled their fish, you personally may not be safe. The toxin is actually transmitted. Then there's all sorts of really rare fish toxins that can cause our muscles to break down. This poor person went to bed totally fine after eating some salmon, waked up, couldn't stand, hold a cup of coffee. Lots of toxins, none of which affected by cooking. So one would never eat poisonous pufferfish if they were smart, but what if it was mislabeled as monkfish like it was in Chicago, leading to tetrodotoxin poisoning? This poor woman ate some mackerel, it literally just dropped. This is actually the most common cause of fish-borne food poisoning, called scombroid poisoning. When flesh decomposes, when fish starts spoiling, these chemicals are produced that are released even when the fish still tastes and smells perfectly fine. And it can cause this most common cause of food poisoning from fish, The chemicals have names like putrescine and cadaverine. That's actually what's used to train the corpse-sniffing dogs, actually. But it's not just fish. When all carcasses rot, as you can see, all these different types of meat products, you get these decaying flesh compounds, including spermine, interestingly, which gives the characteristic semen odor. But it depends on what kind of bacteria is really involved in the putrefaction process. Fact or fiction? Cell phones can give you brain cancer. Brain tumor incidence has been increasing over the last 25 years. Cell phones have anything to do with it? Who says cell phones increase brain cancer risk? Raise your hand. Yes, fact. Who says no, that's fiction? And the answer is fact. From the major review in the International Journal of Oncology published last year, if you do not use cell phones, your lifelong risk of getting brain tumor is 1 in 167. If you do use cell phones, your risk is still really small, but it goes up to 1 in 128. Still less than a 1% chance you're ever going to get a brain tumor. But I encourage people to use speakerphone option, the little headsets, and to minimize the amount that children use them. And I just want to put this risk in context. Children that eat a single hot dog a week have 7 times more likely to get a brain tumor than using a cell phone every single day. And in fact, 1 serving of these cured meats every week increases the risk of childhood leukemia by 900%. Diet is the #1 cause of cancer. Diet is the #1 cause of cancer. Therefore, cancer is a preventable disease, but it does require major lifestyle changes. Only 5 to 10% of cancer risk is from your genes, from your family history. The other 90 to 95% of risk comes to what we expose our bodies. Of that 90 to 95% here in the United States, tobacco is about 1/4 of the risk, particularly among people with AIDS. There's a number of infectious causes of cancer. But if you combine obesity and alcohol into diet, you can see that the majority of risk really in the United States is diet related. And if you don't have AIDS, and if you don't smoke, nearly your entire cancer risk is from diet, and everything else, the cell phones, the x-rays, the air pollution, all fits in to that 10 to 15%, right? So for non-smokers, cancer risk is almost entirely diet. Anything about our diet in particular? From a massive new study in Canada last year, total meat consumption directly related not only to stomach, colon, and rectal cancer, which comes in contact with the meat, but also pancreatic cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer, prostate, testicular, kidney, bladder, and more leukemia as well. 60,000 Americans every year, for example, come down with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Blood cancer goes on to kill about 1/3 of its victims. Significant rise in incidence in recent decades. Not really sure why. Some have suspected exposure to the bovine leukemia virus, which causes very similar cancers in cattle and infects the majority of herds in this country and the majority of people. 74% of people test positive for bovine leukemia virus. Why? From exposure to meat and dairy products. But it may not just be eating animal products, though. Those that handle raw meat for a living actually come down with unpleasant conditions with names like contagious pustular dermatitis. And there's actually a well-defined medical condition known as butcher's warts, which affects those that handle raw meat, including fish and chicken, for a living. In fact, even the wives of butchers have significantly elevated cervical cancer risk, which we know is associated with wart virus exposure. So, first study of its kind, researchers looked at farmed animal exposure as a risk factor for human non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. To be fair, though, there's also feline leukemia virus. You know, our children are more likely to have close contact with a family dog or other companion animal than with a farm animal. So, in terms of our risk of developing non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, animal contact, harmful, harmless, or helpful? Let's get everyone up to answer this question. And no matter how this comes out, remember, I am just the messenger. Okay, first off, cow contact. Does this cow contact increase your risk of cancer? Raise your hand. Who thinks it does not increase your risk of cancer? Anyone thinks it's protective against cancer? Increases your risk of cancer. What about pig contact? Who thinks it increases your risk of cancer? Who thinks it does nothing to your risk of cancer?
Thank God for the kitty thing.
Thank God for the kitty thing. So, protective against cancer. Even if you don't have a cat now, but had a cat in the past, you have a significantly lower likelihood of coming down with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Now for you dog people. Canine companionship. Who thinks having a dog increases your risk of cancer? Who thinks having a dog has nothing to do with your risk of cancer? Who thinks having a dog decreases your risk of cancer? Having a dog decreases your risk of cancer. Good dog. Oh, I would have wiped out the room with a cat question. All right, what about other companion animals like corn-loving hamsters, rodents in the house? Who says harmful? Who says harmless? Who says helpful? And the answer is helpful. Decreases your risk of cancer.
Dairy products are healthy. Dairy Association says you gotta drink milk, eat cheese, yogurt to keep your bones strong. Well, I got some views about that. I did most of my growing up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin. I've been milking cows since I was 8. The reality is, the purpose of cow's milk, really, is to turn a 65-pound calf into a 700-pound cow as rapidly as possible. Cow's milk is baby calf growth fluid. That's what the stuff is. Everything in that white liquid, the hormones, the lipids, the proteins, the sodium, the growth factor, it's all there to blow up a great big cow, or it wouldn't be there. And whether you pour it on your cereal as a liquid, whether you churn it into butter, whether you clot it to yogurt, whether you ferment it into cheese, whether you freeze it into ice cream, it's baby calf growth fluid. It's the lactation secretions of a large bovine mammal that just had a baby. That's why she's giving that milk. And like all mother's milk is full of estrogens. It gives women breast lumps, gives them fibroids. If a woman's got a little breast cancer growing, I think that's drinking milk or eating yogurt's like pouring gasoline on a fire. Guys, worry about man boobs, stop eating the cheese. Guys, you're eating a bunch of estrogens. And if you're trying to lose weight, drinking baby calf growth fluid, I think that person's killing themselves. So see this stuff for what it is. And it's loaded with sodium. That mother cow wants to give that baby calf lots of sodium, so cheese and dairy products are high, and I've got high blood pressure. Now, I can't see dairy products being your friend. And the protein in dairy products also is not very friendly. It's been associated with a lot of nasty diseases as well. Go have a look in the mirror. Do you have big ears and a tail? If you're sure you are not a baby calf, do yourself a favor. Best thing to do for your health, and I say this to my patients all the time, stop drinking baby calf growth fluid in any form. It is not human food. And plus, cheese has congealed butter fat and cholesterol and salt that smells like dirty socks. Do you really want to eat that stuff? No one needs cow milk any more than they need horse milk or giraffe milk or rat milk. The people are afraid their bones are going to fall apart. Osteoporosis is not a disease of calcium deficiency. That's not what the disease is. And eating calcium pills and drinking milk don't make your bones stronger. Osteoporosis is disuse atrophy of the bones. We've stopped using them. We sit all day. We sit at our meals. We sit in the cars. We sit in the office. We sit in front of the computer, sit in front of the TV. We're sitting and our bones are dissolving. You want to make your bones stronger? Take a little 3-pound hand weight and go out for a good walk, okay? And every step you take, a little wild weight goes down your hip, spine, down your hips, and bones start getting stronger. We're getting some little weighted vests. Go to Amazon and type in weighted vest, and you get a vest with some pockets that have a little lead weight. You pop in a pound of weight and go for a walk, and every week you add another pound there to get about 10 pounds. So you could walk every day. You watch that DEXA scan score going up for good reasons, not because you're on Fosamax. So for yourself, maybe I got to have dairy products for my bones. No, you don't. Think about this. Cows don't drink milk. Where do they get all that calcium for those big bones? They get it from the green plants they're eating. That's where the calcium comes from, and that's why every day you shouldn't go to bed at night till you can look back over your eating day and say, oh, you had a big plate of kale at lunch, oh, you had a bunch of broccoli at dinner. That's where the calcium is. Get your calcium in the same place the cows do.
Hi, this is Dr. Neil Barnard. Today I want to share with you a thought about cheese. You know, it's high in fat, high in calories, high in cholesterol. But one of the reasons why it lingers in people's plates is they think, well, I need calcium. Dairy products have calcium. Here's something I'd like you to think about. Cows don't make calcium. Calcium comes from the earth. So grass grows out of the earth, it pulls the calcium out of the ground, and the cow just eats the calcium that was in the plant. Well, if you eat, hopefully not grass, but broccoli or kale or Brussels sprouts or collards, you get the calcium that came from the earth, got into the green leafy vegetables, and you're eating it directly. So there's no reason to get your calcium rooted through a cow's body. It's more absorbable when it comes to you directly from healthy green leafy vegetables. So there you have it. Cows don't make calcium. It comes from green leafy vegetables. That'll help your health.